Hello. Good evening, mi fambulem. This na the Voice of Salone TV network. And today being almost the 18th of January. Sorry about the dates, not 18th of January. Today being the 25th of January. This now we first broadcast. As in I know we've been take holiday over the Christmas period. And then when one starts, we will get other issues then for deal with, like the African nations couple, we know say most of the viewers them they look. And also my colleague, my able colleague, Mr. Shilon, is otherwise engaged. So with him blessing, I say let's start because we're not keeping a waiting. As usual, we dey talk about the topics of the week. So we get several where we can access we can always talk about. In a can access we through YouTube, when a VS television, Facebook again, VS television, and then X when a former Twitter, when a VS television. But one of the interesting things we get to websites when at www.vssalone.com. Then we get a number when I can call we. Where that number they now one and I always use that a WhatsApp number. With that WhatsApp number there, depending on who say you there, now American registered number. So you get for use +1 when at the country code for America, when at 343-997-5828. So +1 343-997-5828. You can dial anywhere in the world using that number there. Then we get with VS radio station of Freetown, although not to the whole of Freetown, but if you get more of the eastern part of Freetown, na 91.9 FM. But alternatively, you can download the VS television mobile app, way easy for you. Where from that you can get them through the Google Play Store or Apple App Store. So with all the information, then we come back today now. Follow can Rob Motpan. 2-3 things the way they happen. This is a new year. And this new year is very significant because as usual, towards the end of the year, we can get the president's speech. We can also get the president in New Year speech for open the year. We also hear waiting the president talk, but say this is a year of action. Action, a year of action. A lot of things in there we want to do. But today, what's in our topic? We want to look at this constitutional review where they do na Salone. And this constitutional review, it comes as a result of the tripartite report, when there be agreement between the two main political parties them, and the people that we can support we in the governance and development projects, we namely in the Commonwealth, the African Union, the EU, America Embassy, and even the British High Commission. So all waiting them in do their agreement here, now for broker peace and make sure say the Chamoto Binge and the 2023 election it not will happen. So today waiting our topic. As you can say in a Creole, not look who say for them, look who say you buck your foot. So we want to look at this, the constitutional review and reform of the electoral management system. Because then the day in the tripartite report we get 80 recommendations. So we want to discuss tonight the role of parliament and the people, we the people with contribution. We from VS now, we represent an important sector, or I would say a group, a collective group, na the Sierra Leone governance and architecture program and social development program, where na the diaspora voices. Because viewers who get people there where they contact you from Canada, it's multinational because we broadcast station na Canada, na then at the Inji room. The other place who can get most contribution not from America. When I did my other co-presenter, Mr. Shilon, can broadcast from. Then me there now, today where they anchor this program, from the UK, in Surrey, just outside London. So why this constitutional review? But anytime what you want to do today, let's start by looking at past experience. What in the way man will call historical perspective. What may not happen before, and how the people may participate. Because this constitution, where they want to review, so if you go through, now the fourth term this will get a review of constitution. Now look what be happened before. And we know saying that parliament now they make the law. And parliament now responsible for make, change, and review law. But we don't see say from time, because of the way we parliament on day, beaucoup change in the way we're not able to see the autonomy of parliament. What I mean autonomy, we're not see parliament the team up as one of the three arms of government. When at the judiciary, the executive headed by the president, and parliament. We don't see that. People are not the gumble. We don't change different way how they employ, they appoint to parliamentarians then, or how they elect them, to be precise. So Sierra Leone get independence in 1961. Without then be independence constitution. So the first time we'll get a constitutional review or a new constitution, now be 1971. Where the 1971 constitution day, now the time where we move from being from where the country be there that the queen as the head of state, and to a republican constitution, we mean say now we don't cut off the link between the country and the queen, because under the 10 and day before 71, anything they do, they do them in exercise of Her Majesty the Queen. Now that makes so even with appeals court self, it been linked to the Privy Council. The Privy Council in Britain, where been done determine some landmark case in that country today, including the issue for deal with citizenship. So now, when President Stevens decided to introduce the 1971 constitution, what did he been do? They been get election where APC, when he introduced the election, the constitution, the 1971 constitution, then they been followed by an election in 1973, where SLPP, when I been the other party, boycott the election day. So waiting have been the results. APC been get 84 out of the 85 seats. And then claim say the majority of the people that will vote, they been get like 97% turnout, be approve the constitution, because normally when they change or introduce a new constitution, you get forget a referendum. Waiting at a referendum. A referendum now a system whereby if you get burning issue, we can put them the issue to the people them for decide. Because the Constitution say clearly, sovereignty belongs to the people, and are from the people, all other institutions get a mandate, be it the executive led by the president, the judiciary headed by the chief justice, and parliament were headed by the speaker. So we been get that. So then they assume, say, well, it was the wish of the people for law get the 1971 Constitution. Because obviously, when the election come, when passing through parliament, APC been get the majority, more than 2/3 majority. Because in a referendum, you get forget 2/3 majority. Then after 1971, the next constitutional review we get the 1978 Constitution. We then bring the one-party states. And they mean do a referendum, according to the report I get, they say 97% of the people they mean support that move they follow get the one-party constitution. And once when they do, they change the term of president from 5 year to 7 year. So which means from 78, President Stevens been there a 7 year time, which means he get up to 1985. So under that one-party constitution there, 15 SLPP members then joined the APC. There was only one dissenting view when the MP for Komoda Pujan area, Manapaka, he was the last man standing, we refused to join the one party. So then at the second term. So why are they bringing this for in a notice? Because each time we will do the constitutional review, they say the people involved, either through an election or through a referendum. And that election day, the first one, there was a majority of seats, more than 2/3 of the seats will win, assuming, say, that the APC party been getting the second term, at the same thing. Then the third term now we get the 1991 Constitution. Whether now the term where with the transition from a one-party state to a multi-party election. So then 1991 Constitution day, now we don't get 30 days. So now look at the background. At that 10 day, when President Momo introduced the 1991 Constitution, let me get wide consultation. The trade unions then be involved. The traditional leaders then be involved. Not only that, the interesting thing is, there was a referendum where they get voting for 4 days continuously. The 23rd, the 26th, and the 28th of August, the previous year. So they say out of the 2.5 million voters they will get, the turnout was 75%. So which means 2/3 of the voting people approved the 1991 Constitution. So since then, we don't get a lot of attempts for review this Constitution. First under NPRC, then President Kaba, then Anuskoma, then President Bio. In 2022, we get a Constitutional Review Committee report. So what we want to do today, let's look at this issue of how we people them, because the Constitution now the primary law in any country. Because all other laws, be it the traditional law, customary law, government, the bylaws them, all other acts of parliament, then derive the mandates from the constitution. And you're not going to make any law in Salone will deviate from what in the constitution say. And it's very important, which I mentioned, are the people's participation. So in doing this review, the Chief Justice, they may interview him. They ask and say, Uda been sidom when I review this constitution. Let me hear what he say. Then we will comment on that. This is from the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. If the control room can play this video, they will go.
So take me through who we did with the constitutional review process. You don't begin or don't do?
Well, I mean, the constitutional review process, we actually try for take them to conclusion now. We say we did right now working out the technical details, and that includes getting consultations on a few of the new provisions on some of the new chapters and really move into drafting proper. But the point is that, it's difficult for talk about who say we did now without talking about who say we don't come out. I know say people can discuss the constitutional review process in the context of say, the constitutional review committee, they do so and so work, or when they set up the committee or that in the committee. We like to tell people and say the committee not there again. The committee actually was dissolved in 2017 after the late Justice Edmund Kawan we hand over the report to former President Nkrumah. And before that, we can recall say there was also the Peter Tucker Constitutional Review Committee, where the late President Kababe set up. That's really not be a product of one, which we signed at the Lome Peace Agreement in 1999 when we signed with the RAF. There was an acknowledgement say the guarantees we Constitution for provide. We go strengthen human rights. We go strengthen delivery of government services. We go strengthen the way we justice system. The work we go strengthen with governance architecture, not being strong enough inside the 1991 Constitution when I would use. So in the Lome Peace Agreement, there's a clause in there say government will review the Constitution, and remember say after that we'll be here for legislate the Lome Peace Agreement into law, and then we get the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, where INSEF do in working at this country and then make a recommendation. Say for undertake broad consultations and review with Constitution and deliver something we go reflect the views and aspirations of the people of this country for a democratic society willing to economic development. And so now that make late President Kababe set up Peter Tucker Constitutional Review Committee. Yeah. We done in work in 2017, in 2007, sorry, hand over to former President Nkrumah because late President Kababe not step out at the time. But then former President Nkrumah been see the need for broader consultation. So now that make they set up the current Constitutional Review Committee. We been get 80 members, broadly representative, and then that committee they work from 2013 to 2017, and then hand report over to former President Nkrumah. In government began for issue a white paper, 2017, and then but the process not been done. So when President Bill came to power in 2018, they make a commitment say they want to come to completion. So that's not the process now we will take to completion. So really we Saudi now working on the technical details. They try to make sure so we get consultations on a few of the technical issues, draft and ready for to come to Parliament.
Well, fumble them in another area we learned because it in another profession where they can say them people and the way they were them weak than they now they are the learned people in our country. But me elect for challenge which he say because they ask him specifically, you as the Attorney General and and Minister of Justice, this review they do, is there a constitutional review committee we set up for do this review? In say, from the video evidence, no, there is no constitutional review committee because the constitutional review committee, the last one, now the one way they may do under President Ernest Koeman, we talk about the current constitution. Because after a constitutional review, the normal process, there will be a white paper. Waiting a white paper. A white paper are instruments of lawmaking. With that white paper, the nine go present to Parliament, where Parliament go discuss why they want to review the Constitution. And then the next stage will be a bill. But interesting enough, this learned gentleman, I think he's been economical with the truth. Because under the first term of President Madabio, he been set up a constitutional review committee, where at that time, the opposition been a cry foul. Say, how then they review the constitution, where they not get involved? And anything we for do with reviewing the constitution, they forget everybody involved. Political party representation, even if they're not there directly, but you get for consult widely. And I remember in August 2022, when President Bio received that constitutional review committee report on the first term with the white paper, one of the recommendations we make, we himself talk and say he go do. Now for separate this man where they talk to we in real position, because he get two positions, we create a conflict of interest. Because number one is Attorney General. As Attorney General, it means he is representing the judiciary. Neither the man where they advise government on legal procedures. But then at the same time, he's also a Minister of Justice, which is a Minister of Justice, which means he's part of the executive. So even it is on record that President Biobin said, for split them two positions together. That was in 2022. We are now in 2026, almost going 4 years, where this same man now they had the process of drafting a constitution bill. But again, one of the things I want for Fambule take into consideration is number one, if you look at waiting and present to we, then call them the Constitutional Amendment Act 2025. So the citation say a bill to review the Constitution. So there's a that's in a way now an anomaly. That means because an act of parliament, you cannot call any law an act of parliament until you don't go through the various processes through the parliaments. If you look at, yes, you go see, it say a constitution of Sierra Leone, if the control room can put out for more, let people then see say, not to me they make them. So the Constitution of Sierra Leone, Act number 2025. How can it be an act when you not go through the process? That way, in my own view, is even a misfiling. Because it said being a bill. So on one side you say an act, on the other side you say a bill. So how can one document get two status? I don't think it's a typographical error, because on other programs we don't do on this platform, we don't make a plain say an act of parliament can only be called an act of parliament whether it don't go through the process for let parliament pass the law. And what's in that process is, first of all, they get for gazette the act. When they don't gazette them, and why then they put in a gazette? Now for let everybody get access to them. And the saddest thing now we governance system now, in the past, when we've been get a system where we get MPs and where they represent constituencies, one of the way for let with people and make them voice heard, now for bring them here to the attention of the MP, so the MP can raise them concern. But since the last election, where we get this first, we move from the first past the post to proportional representation, district block vote. So you get MPs then where they represent a district with a number of constituencies. So does it mean if me concerned now about these changes them, especially we in the diaspora as well, who do we get for right to? We get for right to all the MP then where they represent who shall come on at the district. That is a problem when it comes to consultation. So this idea for say, then they consult. How they consult the people then? And constitutional amendment not to something we can do overnight. So right now, let me look at the second part of this program now, because the Constitution of itself get a section we talk about how you they review and change law. This process here now with the DEPAN, the minister tell you say they get reference documents. Number one, they get the Justice Cowan Constitutional Review Report. And also, you get the one way President Biosef Bindu. Right? Then you get the tripartite committee reports. And under that tripartite committee report, you get two legislation. The Political Parties Regulation Council Act and the Public Elections Act 2022. So in other words, the focus of this constitutional review now mostly for do with election management system, where you look at the majority of the people there, where they do this work, they focus no more, not just on constitution. So before we go further, we'll go into details of some of the things that they propose. Agwanle will control room, play the next video for we. We'll talk about referendum. We'll go analyze that, then I'll go through the constitution and talk about what the constitution say about how you for change the constitution. Because what they try for do now, they do two things. Either repeal an act of parliament or two acts of parliament when the political parties regulatory commission or council act, PPRC, and then the Public Elections Act, whose mandate is derived from the Constitution. So they change for amend the one away na creature of the Constitution, but then you left and say that they now go inform what you go do per constitutional amendment. And certain way they amend Constitution, it get for bid through a referendum. From history and from what the Constitution say. So now listen to what he say about this referendum process, then I'll go into detail on how What's in the amendment say? And also how Parliament for handle this matter. So if the
You
control
get less than 3 years to the elections, and you plan for when I hold the referendum at the same time we get to general elections.
Well, so we look at waiting feasible for the country. The good thing is we try for conclude the drafting process. We don't try for separate the process into two. One that we not say a lot of the proposals in there we touch on electoral reform. That's not the white paper I talk about. And then you also get the recommendations we come from the tripartite process. So what we don't do now that we don't take out the proposals we touch on electoral reforms, we don't put them at the same space with the tripartite recommendations. So then when in there, we don't draft already, we go gazette them, so the public go see, and we plan say when Parliament resume, when Parliament come back from recess, we want to make this be the first order of business where Parliament they deal with. And then after that, we move on to the other proposals. We will touch on both non-entrenched and entrenched provisions in the Constitution. When we don't done that, now we view say at this point, with all the amendments in there, the nature and character of the 1991 Constitution don't change so much that we cannot continue to call it the 1991 Constitution, call it a new Constitution. So instead of going into a referendum on just the entrenched provisions, we want to go into a referendum with a single question to the public, which will be a yes or no question on the new Constitution. Now, on the timeline for that, we do in active discussions. We will also go for consult with other actors for see when will be a good timeline for that. Whether we do them in the next 1 year, or we do them in 2027, or if it makes sense for me to move on to election day. So then when I think they will discuss right now.
Okay, so before the next elections or before President Buhari tenure end, we will get a new constitution.
That now waiting. That now waiting. We don't commit ourselves to.
Fine, fumble them. In other waiting this, the man where they advise the government on law say. Now, as I begin what I'm telling I say, you get the current constitution review report. But waiting trigger this whole process now the tripartite report. Now, if Nadande will they use as a basis for constitutional review, what is the legality? What is the legal status of that tripartite report? Because when they say tripartite, now 3 groups then did it. Group number 1, now the party will win the election. When are the SLPP. Group number 2, now APC, the one the way feel say they've not been treated fair, the election not fair, because of them they argue say they want disaggregated result as against non-disaggregated result. When they use technicality say the Electoral Commission will not get any constitutional mandate for get disaggregated result. But then an argument for another day. The third party, where one of them and then fund this whole process, we have been the United States Embassy, we spend 1.6 million together with the AU, the ECOWAS, Commonwealth Secretariat, and the European Union, where they then are the election observers then, where even some of them talk about things that will not be right with the election. We know you're waiting and say it too. Because they don't get the report, but they don't make their position clear. Now we can talk about moral guarantors and not moral guarantors. So first of all, for me, let we look at the status of the tripartite report. And I will therefore come back to who said procedurally we don't get it wrong. So this whole process, in my view and in my opinion, I stand to be challenged. by the legal guys them, it's been flawed from the start. And I'll tell you why I will say that. If you go to the tripartite report, recommendation 80, right? It clearly say, I will read them in English. Now, one of the most important recommendations in the report, the last one, it said that the final report be tabled in cabinet and that cabinet develops a cabinet paper to guide government of Sierra Leone implementation, including legislative reform, as required. Parties call upon development partners and other international organizations to provide technical and financial assistance. In other words, what they say in a crew, the report's not done. So, the first thing they do, they send this report to the president. They go put it to the president as head of the executive government. Then, according to the recommendation, even for table in cabinet, and then cabinet go develop a cabinet paper. We don't even see that. Even if it exists, what happened? There was a steering committee that was set up. The steering committee was set up with the blessing of the president. We're headed by the chief minister. Then there was a tripartite secretariat with all the people chosen. Was that informed by this cabinet paper? And that is the situation where procedurally, with any such document, Parliament is the principal lawmaker. The tripartite report should have been tabled in Parliament together with the cabinet white paper. When I go show waiting the government decide for do and how for handle. Unless I don't miss the record, but that did never took place. So from the beginning, in my opinion, that was a problem. But I'll go back. Now another key recommendation, where from my own experience in parliamentary processes and procedures, that is where we mistake. And that is where I'll blame the opposition party, where they make noise. And what did me for happen? When they me for present this tripartite report to Parliament with the cabinet paper of what government do, or how they want to do them, including electoral reforms, amendment of the Political Party Act, yeah, amendment of the Public Election Act. In presenting that to Parliament, the tripartite report make a specific recommendation to that. When a recommendation 20, I go read them. He said, create a dedicated oversight committee in Parliament comprising representatives from all political parties represented in Parliament as a standing committee on electoral matters to review an electoral cycle, inquire into electoral preparedness, guide legislative reform. And listen to this one. The committee is to be chaired by an MP from an opposition party. Parliament to have an annual debate on the Electoral Commission's annual reports submitted under Section 32(12) of the Constitution. So, what is been happening now is in breach of that particular recommendation day, where both sides agree. Because if we look at it talk about political parties represented in parliament. Of course, we all know, say, after the last election, when we get proportional representation, now only 2 parties in there. And what thing they talk about a standing committee. You get committees of parliament. A standing committee, we get an existing committee, when a legislative committee on legislation. But because of the intricacies, the complexity of this particular tripartite report and implementation, both sides recommend say you forget a standing committee in parliament, where when you get a standing committee, normally, if we look at the composition of parliament, now 3 sets of people in there, I would say 3 groups. You get the ruling party, we get 81 members. The opposition, we get 54. Then you get the one that we call Paramount Chief Members of Parliament, PCMP, when they represent the districts, when 14 of them, we make up the total of 149. And convention in our parliament say the paramount chief, although they represent the people them, but they vote with the political party in power. And so, if you take them by numbers, it means the majority of the MPs them will go there another committee could be SLPP MP, which is what the standing order say. And the standing order, when under the rules and procedures of parliament, get a mandate from the constitution. So you go get some SLPP member in another committee there. You get some APC member in the committee. Then you get a paramount chief member in the committee. But because the membership of the committee will be skewed in favor of the ruling party, now make sure it says specifically the chairman of that particular committee they were there for set for come from an opposition MP. Because the chairman of any committee get the same rights, privileges, and position and authority like the speaker. When the speaker, then they preside over parliament. So from day one, that committee there, for them set. We're all in here where they do so now. Like the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, for them they report to this committee like a roadmap, because it talk about 2 things where they talk about this in reform of the Constitution. It talk about things that were in the tripartite committee report, things that were in the Constitution, and other issues that will come about from the Political Parties Regulatory Commission Act, Regulatory Council, sorry, PPRC, Political Party Regulatory Council. Before, it was Political Party Registration Council. Then if I look at our parties and they operate and everything. So when they go change them in the parliament and call it regulatory, it means now that they regulate everything. Now make so recently we been say, because of that power where they go get through parliament, now make sure they charge members of both political parties for speeches where they make or utterance where they make, where they feel to say it's in breach of the peace. So they not give them teeth. right? But their own law was through a mandate of Parliament. So in other words, what is interesting, you go amend secondary legislation. What do I mean by secondary legislation? Because the primary legislation, now the Constitution. All other acts of Parliament are secondary to that Constitution. So why not start from the top? Go for a constitutional amendment. Then it will easily follow, say, you can follow up with the amendment of secondary legislation. But the way they do it now, you go amend the secondary legislation and say that they go influence the constitutional review, which is, in a way, is unprocedural. It's against the rules and procedures of Parliament. Now, the second thing is that let we look at how they amend Constitution. And then in section 108 of the constitutional, the 1991 Constitution. Let's start first. Section 108.1, it says, subject to the provision of section, Parliament may alter this Constitution. Because at the 1991 Constitution, because some of them here when they talk, it gets a bearing on the 1991 Constitution. A bill for an act of Parliament under the section shall not be passed by Parliament, where means say, anything you want to do, you get for do and through a bill. And that bill, before the first reading of the bill in Parliament, the text of the bill is published in at least 2 issues of the Gazette. Okay, let me explain that process for the layman. A bill is a proposal or a document will inform the general public about amendment, review, repeal, or introduction of a law, either as a statutory instrument or a constitutional review or an act of Parliament. So, so this particular bill, because even if you look in the title, already don't call them an act, which is unconstitutional. It cannot become an act until it goes through the process where now a bill, even for be a bill, not an act. You know they call an act until all tenum pass. So let me show you USA again is unprocedural and then it's unconstitutional. Because it says when they don't publish it at the Gazette, you go forget the first reading of the bill in Parliament. When they don't publish now 2 sections of the Gazette. But now look at what in Parliament, the notice where they put. Then they invite all parliamentary committee members them, or all parliamentarians, not committee members, with other interested party for going to committee room 1, which they call a pre-legislative hearing. That is not only against parliamentary rules and procedures, it's also unconstitutional. Why do I say so? I don't read the act, the section of the act. Because it get for go first as a bill in Parliament, the first reading. Let me just show you now how they make law. And this is based on a system we adopt from the British government or the, not British government, the British system of parliamentary legislation, who call the Westminster model, even in beaucoup Commonwealth countries and they follow. So you get a bill. The bill goes to Parliament. The first thing is a first reading. Waiting at the first reading. The first reading are the introduction. So this bill for don't go to Parliament at the main body of Parliament for say, look, this is what we've drafted. This is what we want to change. And this is why we want to change it. Then, according to law, this bill therefore be debated, and then it has to be approved by 2/3 majority. And let's go back to where I quote from. It says the bill it therefore be approved by 2/3 majority. So once you don't care and go as the first reading, then debate them. It is only then that the members of Parliament go say, okay, because of the complexity of this bill, let it go into a pre-legislative hearing. Waiting at that pre-legislative hearing, the controversy is that the pre-legislative hearing, because we get a legislative committee, when I then get for hold several sections on this bill. And because it is a constitutional amendment bill, and it can not be just go through without the contribution of the people, you will therefore get a long session with that committee, when a pre-leg committee, not to just go over stamp, then therefore examine the bill clause by clause. And in doing that, then therefore get all the people them where it affect. Let them can give oral evidence, then give their opinion. So that is the pre-legislative committee hearing. Now they look at that. For instance, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General say, then consult 17 registered political parties. 17. And in taking this bill to the pre-leg committee, the voices of them political parties need to be heard. And that could be there for reference purposes. Why we need for letting voices of these political parties be heard? Because one of the clauses in the bill is say any political party will not win 2 seats in either a local government election or a presidential election or an MP parliamentary election for 2 consecutive elections, you therefore deregister them. And who do they deregister them? Now the PPRC. So that alone is affecting a large section of the parties, the political party, who are not in parliament. So because they are not in parliament, their voices need to be heard. Not only that, we need the voices again of the diaspora. We need the voices of women organizations. We need the voices of traditional rulers. So at this pre-legislative hearing, not to just do when I go do 1 or 2 days in a cell and I bring and come back. You know the work. Because a lot of people in the way they affect. And if they affect a lot of their people in there, their voices want to be heard. So the fact that the first in this, you take a bill in Parliament where you know that do the first reading, then you go pre-legislative hearing immediately. So, for instance, we get 149 MPs there. The Committee on Legislation, they don't pass 13 or 15 when I then get for examine this bill. How you go get the participation of the other MPs there? So you're talking about out of 149, if we say now 15, they now the pre-leg committee. So you're talking about 134 whose voices could be heard. So you don't put the cat before the horse. You know they're going to pre-legislative committee before you do the first reading in Parliament. That is unprocedural. And again, Section 108 of the Constitution is an entrenched clause. What do you mean by entrenched clause? Because people are not hearing this thing, Boku, they don't know. Entrenched clause, na clauses na the Constitution where you cannot change it without the mandate of the people. And what does it mean by mandate of the people? It means it get to go into a referendum. So you see how we do things, where in my own opinion, I stand challenged by any legal authority or anything, by not following the procedure for amend the Constitution, which talks about the first reading, which has not been done. Then they talk now for go straight to pre-leg. That is unconstitutional. Because you can forget the first reading, you get pre-leg. After the pre-leg, you now come to the second reading. The second reading of the bill, now that 10 days, waiting the pre-leg, they now find out, where they not find out, all the recommendations, and that 10 days, they can't debate in a Parliament. And for a bill of this nature, then get for examine the recommendations in the bill clause by clause. Because since it's a constitutional review, that's the way they're not supposed for. I see somebody they write, explain to us how they introduced the 1991 Constitution first. Okay. First way they say like explain how they do the 1991 Constitution, right?
In the heart of Sierra Leone, where dreams often struggle to find wings, one young man dared to hope. This is John Sitta. Born into a humble family where even putting food on the table was a daily challenge, education seemed like a distant dream.
Good afternoon and welcome to Voice of Salone Radio.
Good afternoon to listening.
It's like explain how they do the 1991 Constitution. Okay. The 1991 Constitution, first of all, there was a widespread consultation. We got a committee. Then it was a referendum. The referendum then votes for 4 days. So the 23rd, the 26th, the 28th, and the 30th of August. So in other words, the 1991 Constitution gets a mandate of the people. So that's how they did it. And the difference between that and now, because when they talk about referendum, it's very, very important for know what are you putting to the referendum. That's where the big confusion lies. Because with the 1991 Constitution, there was a whole holistic document, a document where get everything. So they go to a referendum where people let me get for vote for 4 days. Say, do you approve of this new Constitution? Yes or no? Right? So now one document after consultation. What is the difference between waiting down there and do that 10 days to now? Now you get a situation where the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, they say to we, then they review certain clauses in the Constitution which are non-entrenched clause. Now that's the problem we'll get, because non-entrenched clause are clauses which you can change, like waiting in a trial for do, through a constitutional instrument or a bill. And that bill, according to Section 108 of the Constitution, you get processes the way they follow. 1, you get for gazette them twice. Waiting at gazette. Gazette now a government publication paper where they notify the public about changes in law. So after you don't gazette them, you get for bring them the bill and the text of the bill before Parliament. Then they say, provided that not less than 9 days shall elapse between the first publication of the bill in the Gazette and the second publication, and the bill is supported on the second and third reading by votes of not less than 2/3 of the members of Parliament. It said 2/3 of the members of Parliament. We don't get a problem with that particular wording of that part of the Act. Because if we remember, when we been get the vote for remove the Auditor General, the Speaker at the time interpreted this as 2/3 of members present in Parliament, as opposed to 2/3 of members of Parliament. Because this one say the bill, the votes of not less than 2/3 of the members of Parliament. It's very simple. So 2/3 of the members of Parliament, whether it's present or not, you get to take 2/3 of 149. How you get a 149, as I've been saying? You get 81 SLPP, 54 APC, and 14 Paramount Chief. So that's roughly about 99 MPs. But here's the danger. Because this is a constitutional amendment bill, when it comes to dealing with it in the second reading, they should go clause by clause. Each clause on the bill, discuss them, make amendments, and then vote on it, requiring a 2/3 majority before it's accepted. That idea said then go debate them and then do a generalist approval by 2/3 majority. It will be a disservice to the people. So that is where we have the problem. And again, if we listen to the video where the Attorney General and Minister of Justice say, he said he don't take the non-entrenched clauses on the Constitution, whether they can pass through this bill. Then you get the other one when an entrenched clause in the Constitution. But even at that, some of the proposition now this new bill is bordering on the entrenched clauses in the Constitution, though not directly, but indirectly. For instance, they make a recommendation, say, the life of Parliament should be up till before the general election. That is in violation of the entrenched clause of the Constitution, which talks say, Parliament cease for exist once they don't declare a date for a general election. Normally, it could be about, most time, about a month or two before the election. So Parliament cease for exist. So how now they can't tell we say, Parliament in life good day up till the eve of the election. That is a violation of the Constitution. It's a violation of an entrenched clause in the Constitution. Indirectly. So you see, we play with some danger. The other one come when you talk about the election of the president. Now, even that, it go against what even then at the tripartite report, where if not that, they one quote. Because if you talk about the tripartite report, it show how for elect president and a dangerous precedent to the set. And now I go back to my reference, and then they talk about how they amend the Constitution for elect the president. Under the current requirements for elect president, we get for the first past the post, or even for the first election, we the president get 55% of the votes. If not, then we'll go into an election, a second round. But now, with this new proposal, tripartite been say, let them change down it to 50 plus 1. And you get at least 20% votes, district votes, in at least 2/3 of the district. But now this one, when they can go parliaments now, they tell me about simple majority. And that is very dangerous. Because what it means, you can get a president who is elected on a 34% mandate or 35% mandate. Then you talk about 2/3, 20% votes, not 2/3 of the district there. And the district, they not get equal weighting. And will be see what happen under the last election. I'll get for come to that. We will talk about this PR system. And the next topic we will get for go to. Because it's a whole kind of worms. Because we realize the opposition party, district and they, where they not even get seats. And why they not get seats? Because the threshold for get seats now then district and they was 11.9%. So already don't tell you say, if they go that way where they want to do them with this proportional representation, the majority of the district then are the side away currently the ruling party no get seats, the opposition party no get seats, they're not able to get that 20% there. So even if they get a higher vote, you mean they talk about total vote, but because they don't meet that second criteria, then they will bring a constitutional crisis. So the two way they avoid, they complicate the problem. Because now two thresholds you don't put. One, the total number of votes. Two, the percentage votes in the districts. And remember, so we get 14 districts. And if we get 14 districts, 2/3 of the districts, so at least if you round them up, you get to get that 20% in 10 districts. Judging by the results of the last election, it will be impossible for, even if the opposition gets a majority vote in the total number of votes cast, if they don't get at least 20% in almost 10 districts, it's not going to be 10 again, because this government don't propose 2 more districts, right? We're in a Bandajuma, right? And the other districts were there. So we are thinking about 16 districts, right? So if you take 16 districts, 2/3 of the one in there, you're talking roughly over 10 districts. So that is a serious problem. So now let's come to this whole idea of the PR system. The PR system, let's look at what in the tripartite report be recommend. And before I go there again, there's a change in the constitution where say, now before in the past constitution, you cannot stand for presidency unless you are a member of a political party. But now in the amendment say now you can stand for presidency as an independent candidate. That again, a serious constitutional reform where you cannot just live without having the say of the people. And that can only be done through a referendum, be it entrenched or non-entrenched, because there's fundamental change in the system. Now let's come to the elephant in the room, where now recommendation 78. Because the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, where they make a submission and they argue, they say, for go with the PR system, then take the recommendation from the Kawani report. Kawani done from 2015 or 2017. So in other words, you have to make sure, say now, when it comes to election of MPs and councillors, a proportional representation. So they want to do away completely with the first past the post. So the only time we will use first past the post now for presidential election. When even at that, you get a caveat. The 20% votes cast in 2/3 of the district. So waiting the recommendation 78 been said. Now go back to that. He said there should be a national dialogue on the choice of electoral system to be adopted for parliament and local councils between district proportional representation system and first past the post. So it talked about national dialogue. Attorney General and Minister of Justice said they don't do national dialogue. They don't go from district to district. Who then they consult na the national dialogue then? Waiting at the percentage of people them where they participate in the discussion and they. When you take the population of the districts, I don't think say it's 10% of the people themselves who in a consult. He also talked about that minimum of 30% female representation is maintained at levels consistent with the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act. Even that Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act, it is subject to the amendment of the Constitution. because the Constitution make provision for non-discrimination. So that alone, you cannot just go change them without you not get a constitutional amendment through a referendum. So you see, then are the thing. But let's look at the PR system. Again, we don't get 3 elections on the PR system. The first election, now a district, now being a single constituency. That was 1996. In 2002, now we introduce the district block system under an addendum to the Constitution, which is Section 38A. Then, in 2023, we come out with this one, where the key problem, now how you they allocate number of seats per district. And the only two you can do, you can get them through a census data. Now, look at the interesting thing. The last election, they used the aggregates of the 10-year census, when I've been in the 2015 census, and the average, sorry, and the 2022 midterm census, and come out with a formula of 11.9% for get a seat, which people, let me say, too high. Now, this new proposal, they say, they get for left hand to Parliament, for let Parliament decide waiting at the threshold. Is that not a danger? Because if Parliament get for decide again, when they talk about 2/3 majority, 2/3 majority, the people that went at the parliamentarian, of course, 30% of them are new members of Parliament. And they owe their allegiance to the party. So they go vote on party lines, not in the interest of the people. But when you take our numbers, the ruling party get 81 seats. If the 14 paramount chief join them, then are 95. You just need a few rebel MPs for let them get 2/3 majority. For decide waiting at the threshold for the number of seats per district. But then here the other problem we come in. The same tripartite report and recommendation say you can only use a decennial census. What do I mean decennial census? That is the census what they do every 10 years. Because the last decennial census what we do, have been 2015, which the present party in power opposed to. Now make sure they bring the midterm census. The one they plan for do, now 2026, December. And the same tripartite report say, you cannot use that figure for any election because you need the census figure at least 24 months before the election. And let me tell you now the snag about it all. We'll end up being the same way. Say, well, listen, we don't get census figure, so we'll go to, that would be a justification for the PR system, right? Then you don't left out to Parliament with 2/3 majority, and then they decide waiting at the threshold. We are in for a long ride. So that is the situation. In conclusion, on this one, we will get forget other people them, other master sabi people them. We will come, okay, let talk about this issue, right? Because we go back to section 108 of the Constitution. Because when you look at, when they asked the Minister of Justice if we will get a referendum, he was a bit cagey. Because how you go pass then law there, we are now in 2026. If you want to get a referendum, you have to get a referendum bill first, and then you have to go into public consultation over a long period of time and get a newly drafted constitution, which includes all them changes there into one document. Because referendum, you have to go say, do you accept this new constitution? Because instead of talking in your words, what thing they look forward to, not a revised 1991 constitution, but a brand new constitution. How is that possible before the 2028 election? Which means the intention is to go pass the constitutional amendment here and say we'll not get time for a referendum, and since it's the law of the land, impose on the people. But there's a way out. Because we see some of the champions of civil society, they don't become politicians now. Some don't go into private practice. You know? Some don't get government job. So who will speak for the people? There's only one way. Parliament make provision for a public petition. And if we have one brave person, even the political parties, the way they know concerned about this, for come up with a public petition for halt this particular dangerous constitutional review bill or act, because I get two names. They call a bill, they call an act. It will cause chaos in our country. So, this is my view on that. And all what I express here, I am not a lawyer, I could admit, but I've had considerable experience in parliamentary rules and procedures, in the making of laws. I've also drafted bills for parliament, although it is my specialist area of transport. And based on that experience and my opinion, and I stand challenged. We will continue to monitor this system, and with time, we will get experts that will come in who can talk about this thing. The next trendy topics we want to go back on, were very important because you get a bearing on all this way they happen. Now, thing for do with the sudden realization by the president that January 18 should be declared a day of remembrance. Because then at the day where President Kaba been come and say word and done. And after that, we will get the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, where a lot of the things them where it be recommend, we don't take almost here now. Things to do with justice reform, things to do with human rights abuse. We take today with a battle, it's on paper, but we're not able to monitor them. So now go and look at flashback, a video about the TRC. And then we can talk about that in this latter segment of the program.
The Truth and Reconciliation na document The Truth and Reconciliation na document wey don impact national healing as way for provide platform for victims of human rights abuse for make them go able publicly share their story as way for talk about wetin bin don happen during the 11-year civil war and self-forget collective effort for reconciliation. Some of the key impact of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission on the national healing get for do it for promote accountability, facilitate forgiveness, empower victims, education and awareness raising, and plenty other one them. Way in the talk, Patrick Fatoma, na the outreach and focal person for the residual special court, na Salone. First start for talk about the reason we make them be set up the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, na Salone.
Well, Truth and Reconciliation Commission, as commission where them been recommend where we get the Lome Peace Accord. When we go na Lome, after we don't fight long wars, long years of war in this country, we know able to how for stop them. So when January 6 can the rebel they enter inside Freetown and kill thousand people them, the government of Tijan Kaba have been decide say, you know what thing? Let not continue for fight their rebel here. Let we call them and join on and we all make peace together. So when they go na Lome for make the peace, pan one of the commission that we then establish, the commission in your name, na commission we go there for make consolidate peace. On that day, na they then say one of the roles of that commission na for let it carry out a truth and reconciliation process na Sierra Leone. So the truth and reconciliation na been something we then set up for let it bring Sierra Leone people then together. The one that we then do bad and the one that we do the bad. Let them all talk their own feeling. And when they talk done, let them make peace together. So no matter how people they make plaba, when I just get for Fenway for let them make peace. So the Truth and Reconciliation have been come for bring that peace day for let Salone people and come back together and reconcile after a long period of conflict.
Patrick Fatoma, same way to talk about the impact of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission on the national healing.
However, my idea about waiting the impact with Truth and Reconciliation make for Sierra Leone, now that it be able at that time where the conflict been just done, able bring people then together and make them talk. At least the one day we then do the bad. Some people will then cut their hand and cut them foot, then burn their oaths and kill them, fumble them. And the one day we cut the hand and burn the oaths and kill, fumble them, then come together and talk and decide for sit and they make peace. Then there have been big impact. And that impact normally then they call it bring closure. It makes it, they forget to, but it brings small collapse by you for say, yes, the bad way don't be, and no say, in order for continue again. Even the one that we do the bad, then don't agree to let we come together. So that impact, it been so big in Sierra Leone that a good chance for let we start governance process, development process, all the other processes, the reconstruction, rehabilitation, for bring people and come back with all on away come on as Salone, it bring all down they come back. But the TRC them is set up for make two big important things. Apart from bringing the victims together, it be also for rights and make sure say they come out with a history of the war, of the conflict, impartial historical record we not get for favor government and not favor rebel and not favor nobody, but it talk true for Sierra Leoneans so that Salone people then go no say that this na be. Then in addition, if I make recommendation we for make then thing then they not be again. And TRC it make them recommendation. They plenty recommendation there. Plenty of them now they would enjoy so today and would utilize, but plenty people don't know. Then can feel to say pass them announcer all over the place. Yes, TRC recommendation and they were very important where they make where they help we for less Salone go before.
For know about how the Truth and Reconciliation Commission don't impact national healing, especially from victim of war them na the country, then people here get concerned.
And we issue presently easy for war victims. Plenty of our colleagues don't they sick, don't die because we not get proper medical attention all day for we. And plenty things they will forget, we know they get up. And plenty challenges and they presently for war victims in this country. We easy for we as a disabled people and also as a war victims easy.
Easy with you.
Patricia Nasu Dianema na the chairperson na the Human Rights Commission for Salone. Be same also talk about the commission in work, na the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Virtually 9 functions them, where one of the key functions get for do with where they receive complaints, and we also they inquire into. Now what to inquire into mean? It actually means in Lexef we see people that get cases of human rights in office and carry the commission. But if we as a commission find out say this thing where they happen, it get the potential to affect the enjoyment of rights, I mean we investigate it around. Then again the commission also get the opportunity, the role for make sure that all doors are open for people that for cover their complaints individually and as a group. And then secondly, we got a very big role also for raise awareness, because we get a lot of people that they talk say me no sabi me right. So we do a lot of awareness raising on human rights issues.
Rashid Doumbia, now the executive director for Legal Link, and Abdul M. Fatoma, the chief executive campaign for Human Rights Development International, themselves beget concern.
The Human Rights Commission get responsibility as a national commission, for promote, protect human rights, and hold government accountable for the state obligation on human rights issue. And in the annual report, advise government, make recommendations, let government improve on the human rights, effort and the human rights work, in the country. But for far too long, we still say the Human Rights Commission, they make several reports there, and make recommendations.
The lasting impacts of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission on the national healing, then at page 13, volume 3B, chapter 7 and section 7.2 of the Truth and Reconciliation. This story now with support from the Africa Transitional Justice Legacy Fund through the Media Reform Coordinating Group, MRCG, under the project Engaging Media and Community Them for Change the Narrative on Transitional Justice Issues Them na Salone. For Liberty Online Television, me na David Yankesise, the report.
Well, family them, first of all, let me extend my sincere thanks to Liberty TV for we able to use them vote, the video and this. You see, the point is, we talk about this TRC, the human rights, maintaining the human rights, and one thing we forget, there is no peace without justice. And this is one of the things that the human rights, the TRC, be look at. Access to justice, affordability of justice. We get several issues them, several organizations them. I give an example. Some of the things that will cause the war, now because certain people are not able to exercise their rights to employment, it's ironic that we get an organization called the Ombudsman. Waiting at the Ombudsman. The Ombudsman is established through an act of parliament. Ombudsman, a body where if you get any chamot with any government agency, right, you can go lay complaint. Then for investigate, administrative justice, discrimination. But even the Ombudsman itself, one of them former employee, will they see the right letter on social media, how they take advantage of them. So if the man will forgive respite, and so we do it inside, get justice. These are some of the things that led to the problems that we'll get. Even when it comes to right to access information, we get a body where parliament legislates, where if you don't know anything about government, you can go to them. Right? Even down there itself, how many people can able to ask for information and know how to do that? Or is there and then they do their work? But lastly, in this whole business, when you talk about justice, One of the reasons, now there I go finish my broadcast today, we make we problem come leading to the Kuskaso Binget, we will call the 10-year rebel war. Now the part where relates to the difference between the government and those they govern. And this is now exhibited in which they see so this constitutional amendment bill, where you get a set of people them, when they follow procedures, who can pass law, we go shape the future of our nation for a time immemorial. So we will continue this debate. And as the president said, we're going for challenge them. We say this year and a year of action. Let us start first by getting things right. Is this bill in the interest of the majority of Sierra Leoneans? Or is it to keep some people in power in perpetuity? So with that, me family them. Until we meet again next week, where my co-host go joining us. Running this program has been a challenge, and for the talk almost 2 hours, it's quite a task. So I'm telling you, thank you for when you listen to me, and we'll continue for updating her, because this is now one situation where it equal to me out. And we went at the diaspora. Don't forget for begin back this, back that, because at the end of the day, now we know the social safety security net in a salon. We trouble being a salon. Now we family and they come to friends, send money for me. We picking up school fee. Now we see what's in the happen in America. Bokuma they're scared because of what's in the happen. Lots of Sierra Leoneans. Just imagine if we not try for make sure we get changes to make our country comfortable. Those who will be unfortunate to be sent back home go actually know the intensity of what they talk to. Forget a government where they listen to the people, where they do things for the betterment of the people, not just for the few. So once more again, until we meet next week, Namide say tata.